I know who created Christianity, when, and why. I'm going to tell you the answer to these questions in this video, but the proof is in my book, Jesus Demigod, available on Amazon. So who created Christianity? The answer is most definitely the Romans. It was written in the Roman Empire in a Roman language at a time when the Romans were at the height of their power and influence. It is not possible that some nobody created this religion under the noses of the Romans without their knowledge. The headquarters for the Christian church has always been in the city of Rome. It was never in Jerusalem or anywhere else. Rome was and is the center of Christianity. Christianity originated after the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 CE, when the Romans destroyed the Jews, Jerusalem, and their temple and their religion. Christianity was originally wartime propaganda directed at the Jews because they revolted against the Roman Empire. It was not originally intended to be a world religion. It was just wartime propaganda. The Jews were motivated to revolt against the Roman Empire because they thought, based on their religion and their scriptures, that God would send them a military general, a Messiah, a king, who would overthrow their enemies. This was the Jewish concept of a Messiah. When the Romans destroyed the Jews in war and found out that this is what motivated their rebellion, they just created their version of the Jewish Messiah, which was not a military victorious general, but a passive, submissive, humble, obedient servant of the Roman Empire, who told his subjects, the Jews, to obey the Roman Empire and to pay their taxes. The Christian story is not based on a man that actually lived in the 30s and died and was crucified under Pontius Pilate. Jesus was purely a fictional character created for the purpose of propaganda. Jesus' main purpose was to rebuke the Jews for their rebellion against Rome and to tell them that they need to repent of their rebellion or perish in war. The concept of Jesus did not exist prior to the war. It's only after the war that somebody came up with this idea to create a new Jewish Messiah that was going to rebuke the Jews and tell them to submit to Rome. The crucifixion of Jesus in the gospel narrative is just a representation of the crucifixion of the Jewish ideology of a victorious military Messiah. And the glorious return of Jesus from the dead and from the clouds in heaven is representative of the Roman Empire. The kingdom of heaven was the kingdom of Rome, coming in the power and glory of the father, Caesar Vespasian. Caesar Titus was the son of Caesar Vespasian. And the glorious return of the Son of Man was the glorious return of Caesar Titus to destroy the Jews in war in 70 CE. Many of the Greek philosophies that we read about in the New Testament existed prior to the war in 70 CE, but Jesus did not. They simply backdated this fictional Messiah 40 years prior to the war so they could say God sent a Messiah to warn the Jews before their destruction. But Jesus never existed. The 12 apostles never existed. Paul probably never existed. And the letters of Paul did not exist prior to the war. There is no evidence for the existence of Jesus, the 12 apostles, or Paul in actual history. The Bible is not actual history. The Bible is equivalent to a comic book. And Jesus is just as real as Spider-Man. The reason they eventually told stories about the gruesome deaths and martyrdom of the apostles is because the apostles never existed and they needed to give them a glorious death. But what they didn't realize is that if all the apostles had this glorious death by martyrdom, that is actually a testimony that there is no power in Jesus or Christianity to save people from their enemies. Religions do not grow because all their leaders get killed. The reason Christianity grew is because the Roman Empire demanded that everyone become Christian. But the Romans did not demand it originally. Originally, it was only a demand for the Jews to submit and obey the Roman Empire and accept Roman rule over them. But over time, Christianity grew and developed to the point where the Romans said, this is our favorite religion, now we're going to demand that everybody accept this religion. But that didn't happen until the 4th century. Jesus is never coming back because Jesus was never here. The New Testament is absolutely unreliable, and untrue. No one is going to bow at the feet of Jesus. No one is going to confess that Jesus is Lord, except in this life when people are brainwashed to believe that ancient Roman wartime propaganda is true. If you read Jesus Demigod with an open mind, you will know that what I'm saying is the truth.